If you're in your late 50s, early 60s, you have $1 to $2 million in your investment accounts, you're probably wondering, can I retire? What could retirement look like? You're asking a lot of the same questions I'm used to hearing from people transitioning to retirement. What will my income look like? How do I pay for health care? Am I set up well if there is a recession or the market drops? Can my portfolio withstand that and I still be okay and have a long, successful retirement? And you're probably also wondering, man, do I have enough? What is enough? You unwanted things, of course, don't want to run out of money, but also what is enough? You don't want to keep working if you're already set up well and have enough to live the life you want to live. So what is that balance there? And these are all great questions, and that's why I made this video here today. I wanted to walk you guys through a case study of a family that my team actually started working with here this past year. I wanted to walk you through what their situation looks like, give you guys an insight into the types of conversations we're having, different planning scenarios we are looking at, and give you an insight into what your retirement could possibly look like if you're in a similar situation. And before we jump in here, if we haven't gotten to meet yet, my name is Dylan Martin, certified financial planner with Stewardship Investments, and it is my passion to help families live a life where money is serving them and they are not serving money. So with that, let's jump in here and meet this couple. So we have Tom and Jan Smith. Of course, their names have been changed for privacy reasons. So jumping in here, we'll take a look at different assets they have and what their situation looks like. So first off, we'll take a look at their cash situation. So $1,500 in the checking, $10,000 in the emergency fund. So really quick, this is not necessarily ideal. We do love to see with the families that we're working with that you have adequate amounts of cash. So that way, not if, but when we get to a place when the market drops, they do have safe places to be taking money from. Of course, we are going to have some safe places within their investment accounts, some safe investments that are not going to be subject to high amounts of price fluctuation and volatility. So that's why I'm not as concerned with this family. We do have those safe positions within their retirement accounts, but typically I do love to see families when they are transitioning to retirement to have an adequate amount of cash outside of their retirement funds to have on hand. All right, so diving in here to their investment accounts, you can see Jan has an IRA with just a touch over $1 million in it. Portion of that 401k when it came over was Roth, so $35,000 in the Roth. And as you can see, Jan also has an annuity with $380,000 in there. And before we go deeper here, annuities do get a bad rap, and most of the time, honestly, that is for good reason. They're sold when they shouldn't be. They aren't necessarily the best tool to fix a problem. They're sold in a way to fix problems they were never meant to. But in this case, Jan actually had a pension, and we were looking at her pension options, and then we're also able to look at maybe some outside annuity options. And it was a concern for Tom and for Jan to be able to leave money to their children. So they were worried about if they would have taken an income stream from the pension, something were to happen to both of them, then if there would have been any money left in that pension, it wouldn't have gone to the kids. Whereas we were able to look at an outside annuity option, and the monthly payment was comparable to what they would have gotten through the 100% joint payout with the pension option. And then they were also able to have that option for a death benefit if both of them were to pass away while there's still value in that policy. So it actually ended up being a big win for this family. One of the cases where an annuity can make sense. Not a tool that honestly our firm uses often, but there are situations where they can make a lot of sense for people, so we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater that all annuities are the worst and should never be looked at. All right, so let's keep going here. Tom has his 401k with $411,000 in it, and then he also has a small pension that would be coming over from his current job as well. So we will be looking to get Tom's 401k moved over into an IRA, just like Jan's IRA and Roth IRA. But for now, that's still in here as a 401k. And then as you can see down here in the property that Tom and Jan, they have their primary residence, and then they also have a lake cabin as well. And they do owe a mortgage on both of those properties. That adds up to be $215,000. And a quick note there, it's also ideal if you going into retirement to have your mortgage knocked out. And that's important because one of the most important things for you to be managing in retirement is your cash flow, making sure you have more income coming in than expenses that are going out. So if we can cut down on what those expenses are going to be in this situation, making sure that that mortgage is paid off so there's no more mortgage payment going into retirement, that's a huge net positive for your cash flow position. So we love to see that being the case for people going into retirement. For Tom and for Jan, again, this is not as big of a worry because they do have that pension payment coming from the annuities. So they have a higher floor of guaranteed income coming in to help them take care of their expenses. So not as big of a concern for them. Going over to their goals here, they're both retiring at 60 and they're 60 now, so that is retiring this year. We're looking at retirement expenses of just a touch over $5,000 a month, and then we are estimating health costs to be about $12,000 total per year for both of them. And that may be a little bit on the high side, but we would rather assume high. Things come out a little bit better than that than the other way around. So as you can see here, Tom and Jan are planning on taking their Social Security at full retirement age. For them, that would be age 67. And part of the reason for that is on one end of things, they already have their guaranteed source of income coming from the pension. So that allows them to wait to take their Social Security. They can let that guaranteed amount build some. But then again, because they do already have a guaranteed amount with that annuity, they live a modest lifestyle and are planning to leave assets to their kids, they don't need their guaranteed source of income to be the most it could be with waiting all the way to age 70. So waiting until 67 is a good middle ground there. As you can see, we have planned distributions coming from Jan's IRA at $4,000 a month, $48,000, and then just under $3,000 a month coming from her annuity. That does remind me, I want to touch back on something here. So retirement expenses, we're planning on $5,300 a month, but this does not include their mortgage payments. So you could really say this is more like $7,000, $7,500. So if you were going into retirement with a similar situation, you can plan on that being more so the situation for you. All right, so let's jump over and see what this translates to for them in retirement. All right, so for them in this situation, they have 100% probability of success. And what that means, this is a Monte Carlo simulation. If you have heard of that, some of you, I'm sure, have. So how that works is this planning software runs your situation through 1,000 different market scenarios, the good, the bad, the ugly. What happens if you were to go to retire in 2008, right before the big recession there? Or what happens if you were going to retire in 2000 before the dot-com crash? Or what happens if you were going to retire in 2010, right before one of the best bull markets of all time? It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. Like I said, can your portfolio withstand good market timing and bad market timing? So these guys are in a really strong situation. They have saved well. They're also not planning to spend as much as they could. So different conversations we're having with them is we were saying, hey, just so you know, you could be spending more. So what would happen, or what would it look like if we did bump this up to being $6,500, so another $1,000 a month? Like we said, they're also paying that mortgage, so this is really, call it more like $8,500. And that still looks really strong for them. Of course, their median ending portfolio value when they pass at, we're planning at 90, is less than if they weren't going to do that. So we've looked at that. I also wanted to show you guys, so you can see the portfolio is continuing to grow. Things look really great, but this is in future dollars. So this can be a bit deceptive if you're looking at it this way. So what does it look like if we inflation adjusted this? How does that look? And for these guys, still looks good. Assets are growing. They start to level off. This leveling off is because of these required minimum distributions. So if you guys aren't familiar with those, once you reach a certain age, for some right now it's 73, for some it will be age 75. Once you reach that age, the IRS starts making you take distributions from your pre-tax IRAs or 401ks so that they can start collecting their taxes from those accounts. So whether you need that money or not, you're going to have to start taking distributions. So another conversation point we've been having with this family is, hey, to help mitigate against those required minimum distributions down the road, what if we were a little bit more intentional about maybe looking at doing some Roth conversions now, taking some of that pre-tax money, converting it over to Roth now, and paying those taxes now so that that money can grow tax-free as opposed to growing in the pre-tax account. That helps lower those required minimum distributions down the road and can help save you lots of money in taxes if this is done well. So just as an example here, let's look at doing $20,000 of Roth conversions, and we'll do that over the course of the next 10 years. If we were working together, we would look at a more specific number. Just wanted to show you guys this as an example here. And it would especially depend on the situation with the one big beautiful bill with seniors now having that additional tax deduction. There is special care that needs to be taken with managing your taxable incomes to make sure you're taking full advantage of that while also managing your lifetime tax bill, so that is a consideration to take when looking at all of this. But looking at doing those Roth conversions, we can see that you actually end up with a higher nest egg amount doing those Roth conversions than not doing them, and that's because we are limiting how much money that is going to be taken from those pre-tax accounts down the road from those required minimum distributions. And if you notice here, these values have dropped from when we looked at them a second ago. We're still looking at this in today's dollars as opposed to when we first jumped in here, it was in future dollars. So another thing we'd be looking at is what happens if there was some sort of recession and the market did poorly, your portfolio wasn't looking so good. So we can look at this allocation here and say, well, what if your returns were more on a conservative level, more on a 2 to 3% annualized return over the course of a couple years? Do things still look okay? And for this couple, that does look great still. So they still have some good margin there, even with that increased spending amount. So we can adjust that back to the current allocation, which is more of a moderate, call it 50-50, 60-40 portfolio. So we plan on around 6% of an annualized gain from that type of portfolio. And then we could also look at different retirement spending plans. So right now we're just planning on them spending the same amount and that getting adjusted for inflation along the way. For us here, it's 3% is what we assume for inflation. We could also look at if we looked at different types of spending plans like the spending smile. So for those of you who maybe haven't heard of the retirement spending smile, how that works is it's saying, hey, while you are young, you're healthy, you're in what some people call the go-go years, you're spending more money because you're traveling, you're doing all the things that you want to be doing, taking advantage of your health while you have it. And then as you start to age, maybe start to go a little bit less, travel a little bit less, and therefore spend a little bit less money. So you start out high, start spending a little bit less, but then as you are getting into your later ending years of life, your expenses start to creep back up due to different healthcare expenses. So that is what creates that smile shape. So if we looked at that in the plan, I think I've already refreshed that here, but we refresh that. That just can show a different flair if you wanted to plan for that type of spending as well. And then these guys here, Jan and Tom, they are pretty locked in on wanting to retire early at 60. But if they were maybe wanting to look at working later so that they could maybe spend more, we could be looking at that as well. So we could get these settings fixed back here to where they were, just so we have more of an apples to apples comparison again. We could say, hey, maybe Tom would want to work, Tom and Jan go 2 more years of working, and they would say, well, yeah, maybe I actually want to spend a bit more. Like, what does it look like if I wanted to spend $8,000 and we waited 2 years to retire? Does that work? So we could take a look here and say, yes, that does still work. You can notice the probability of success here dropped a little bit, but these guys are actually set up really well. A good sweet spot for this Monte Carlo analysis, where we like to see it, is really between 85 to 95%. That means there's still some margin, and that typically means retirees are spending enough and not putting themselves in a situation to where they're going to die with a lot more money than they ended up with and didn't spend that along the way. For some people, though, that is still their goal. That's kind of the goal with these guys. They have more of that moderate lifestyle, and they're very okay with leaving money to their kids and that legacy piece that's important to them. So for some people, that's okay. But for a lot of the retirees, we are encouraging them to spend the money that they've worked so hard for. So for these guys, that's what it could look like. I mean, they could wait a little bit and then retire, spend a little bit more. And then one last thing I wanted to show you guys here is this stress test. I think this is a cool tool here as well. So this helps show what I was talking through earlier. What does it look like if all these different things happened? Is my plan still set up well? Can my situation withstand the good, the bad, and the ugly? So you can see there are different situations here. Well, what happens if the market dropped 20% right as I retired? What happens if Social Security got reduced by 20%? I know that's a big thing that people are worried about. What is their Social Security benefit going to look like? What happens if taxes got higher? So there are all these different situations that we could be looking at to make sure that your plan can even more so withstand the good, the bad, and the ugly. I hope this was helpful for you guys, just walking you through one of the clients that we've been working closely with, what retirement could possibly look like for you. If you are looking to retire early around that 60 range and you have between 1 and 2 million, this is what that could look like for you. And if I didn't cover a question here that maybe more so pertains to your situation, please drop a comment below. I'd love to work on more scenarios in the future, help answer those questions if that wasn't addressed here today. Or after watching this video, you're more curious to see what does your situation look like if we were to tweak all the little details and go through a planning scenario like this for you. Well, you can click into the link below in the bio, schedule a free retirement planning session with myself, and we can go through a scenario like this for you. Or if you just want to see if you're on track for retirement, you can click into our website link below in the description as well. Take our 2-minute retirement readiness quiz, get a personalized response, see if you're on track for retirement. Again, I just hope this video was helpful for you, maybe giving you some legs to your vision around what your retirement could look like. Hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next week in the next video. Take care.